Hello everyone, welcome to the first session, The Golden Crescent, Drugs, Militancy and Terror Financing. I am Rajesh Purandare, a researcher at Indic Researchers Forum, and I'll be your host for this session. It is my privilege to introduce the chair of this session, Mr. Yashovardhan Azad. Sir is a Chief Intelligence Advisor, former Special Director, Intelligence Bureau, and Secretary Security, Ministry of Home Affairs, and Chief Information Officer, Government of India. Sir has vast experience in intelligence operations, internal security, and counterterrorism. Sir, we are honored to have you as the chair for this session. Our first speaker for this session is Dr. Arian Sharifi. He has previously served in the former Afghan government as the Director General of National Threat Assessment at the Office of National Council of Afghanistan and as a senior advisor to the Foreign Minister, contributing to major national security and counterterrorism strategies. He brings over 15 years of senior policy and security experience from Afghanistan and international institutions. Internationally, he has worked with Combating Terrorism Center at West Point and research institutes in Singapore. His work focuses on security, terrorism, and transnational crime in Central and South Asia. A second speaker is Dr. Harjit Sandhu. He's a senior Indian Police Service officer who served as a police chief in insurgency-affected areas of Manipur, commanded a Manipur Rifles battalion, and handled high-profile cases with the Central Bureau of Investigation. He held senior international assignments with Interpol and United Nations Security Council, including as a coordinator and spokesperson for the UN Sanctions Panel on Arms Trafficking and Conflict Financing. A recognized expert on financial crimes and counterterrorism, he has advised UN bodies and co-authored a widely used report on Hawala and money laundering with Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Welcome, sir. Our third speaker is Mr. Mohammad Masoom Stanekzai. Mohammad Masoom Stanekzai is a former chief peace negotiator of Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. He previously served as a chief of National Directorate of Security, the acting Minister of Defense, Minister of Telecommunications, and head of the Joint Secretariat of the High Peace Council. He also worked on various DDR and DIAG initiatives and was an early member of the Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission. With over 35 years of experience in security, development, international relations, and humanitarian affairs, he holds master's degrees from University of Cambridge and Princeton University, and is a graduate of Kabul Telecom Institute and Kabul Military University. He serves as an honorary fellow at the Asia Institute, Faculty of Art, Melbourne University. Welcome, sir. Our fourth speaker is Major General Rajan Kochar, sir. Sir is a retired Indian Army officer from the Army Ordnance Corps. He brings over 37 years of experience in command and strategic logistics with key roles in Jammu and Kashmir and Northeast. He is a defense analyst, author, and a TEDx speaker. He is currently serving as an advisor to the UPSC, vice chairman of the National Council for News and Broadcasting. He is serving as an advisor and in other senior capacities to the top think tanks and universities in India. Our final speaker for today's session will be Mr. Shah Mahmood Miakhil. He has held several senior leadership positions in Afghanistan, including Governor of the Nangarhar Province, Deputy Minister of Interior for Local Governance, and First Deputy, as well as Acting Minister of Defense and Islamic Republic of Afghanistan's Ambassador to Qatar. Welcome, sir. Before I hand over to Yashovardhan Azad, sir, I would like to request audience to please turn off their microphones and address all the questions in the chat box, which will be taken during the end in the Q&A session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Distinguished delegates, colleagues, and experts. It's indeed a matter of great honor to chair this session, a critically important session on the Golden Crescent, about the drugs, militancy, and terror financing, and especially chairing a session where you have a galaxy of speakers who are absolute experts in their own domain. And I hope we have a very, very enriching session for the audience and for the experts who are participating today. Now, let me just begin by saying that narco-terrorism today is not merely a law and order problem. It's a strategic threat vector that fuses organized crime, insurgency, and cross-border terrorism. The Golden Crescent remains the epicenter of the global opiate production, and unfortunately, India sits directly in its downstream trajectory. Now, the number themselves will have a sobering effect. In recent years, India has witnessed record narcotics seizures exceeding 20,000 crores annually, with multiple multi-ton heroin consignments intercepted at ports like Mundra, as you know. The NCR region of Delhi has now been seeing repeated busts of synthetic drug manufacturing units, including, clandestine labs producing methamphetamine and designer drugs, indicating that there is a clear shift from India being just a transit route to an emerging processing hub. Now, this illicit economy is generating billions in terms of black money, which is laundered through Hawala channels, we already know, and increasingly now through crypto routes. And these funds sustain what is damaging to India is the terror network operating in Jammu and Kashmir. It helps organized crime syndicates across metros, and of course, proxy destabilization efforts, which are again aimed at our India's internal security network. Now, the convergence is now complete. Drugs are no longer just contraband. They are basically currency for terror. If you have a look at our ports, routes, and the expanding geography of trafficking, and this is my second point, India's vulnerability is increasingly maritime. I've already talked about the seizure at Mundra port in Gujarat, which has exposed the scale at which the narcotics are coming across. And the worst part is, apart from the key trends like, the Western seaboard remaining as the primary entry point from the Golden Crescent, this kind of a traffic has also spread southward, with ports in Kerala and Tamil Nadu emerging as secondary nodes. So, in a way, India is evolving from a transit corridor to distribution hub and then to a processing center. The third point, which I wanted to draw your attention, is about the drones, the borders, and the tactical shift. And if you see that tactical shift changing, which is visible along the India-Pakistan border, the BSF has reported hundreds of drone sightings with recoveries, of course, annually. And these carry, of course, heroin, arms, cash. They bypass the traditional fencing and patrol systems, enabling low-cost, high-frequency deliveries. And in J&K, narco consignments are increasingly linked with terror modules, as we know, with seizures often accompanied by weapons. And therefore, it is a narco-terrorism in its most direct form, where each consignment is both an economic and a kinetic threat. Now, if we look at the statistics, the Border Security Force at the Raising Day press conference last year, 2025, reported 272 drones intercepted and over 367 kilograms of heroin seized along the 550-kilometer Punjab border in that year alone, along with 16 kilograms of methamphetamine and over 10 kgs of RDX. And if you look at the drone interception trajectory is increasing, 21 in 2022 to 294 in 2024 and 272 in 2025. And therefore, this aerial vector has become now the dominant mode of narcotics and weapons infiltration across the weapon in the last 3 years. Now, just a second about the prosecution architecture which we have. This is under that Act of 1985, which was actually designed for an era of ground-based trafficking. And drone drop consignments now raise evidency and attribution problems that the conventional smuggling case did not. Next point, number 4, is Let us look at some facts in Pakistan. On 12th March last year, the Pakistan's Federal Board of Revenue identified over 70 real estate agents allegedly involved in transferring funds to the UAE through Hawala and Hundi channels concentrated in two places, Peshawar and Quetta, both of which sit on the operational flank of the Afghan border and have been historically identified as narcotics, settlement centers. Pakistan's finance minister, Mohammad Aurangzeb, publicly stated in August 2025 that roughly 15% of financial transactions in Pakistan sit outside the formal regulatory system. And that figure is now volunteered by the Pakistan government itself. Now, more significantly, the better known Jaish-e-Mohammed has been known to be exploiting the domestic digital payment platforms, including Easy Paisa and that Sada Pay, to raise funds allegedly channeled through training infrastructure. Therefore, the instruments of terror finance have diversified from Hawala alone into formal financial technology rails, which were designed for financial inclusion. My next point, number 5, is about the social fallout and addiction and internal destabilization. We are well aware that Punjab has long faced the brunt of this human cost, but the serious part is that this problem is diffusing across Rajasthan, Haryana, Delhi, and even now to southern states. There are large-scale recoveries of heroin and synthetic drugs, which indicate deep market penetration. Addiction is eroding youth demographics and weakening the society's resilience. And law enforcement today faces a dual burden: supply suppression, and also as well as demand reduction. And therefore, I would say that narco-terrorism today has become a silent weapon of societal degradation. Just a minute about Manipur, Myanmar, though it is, to be addressed in a different session. We are feeling the pressure in Manipur, where Harjit has served once, where there is a sharp increase in poppy cultivation in hill districts, and that is under the protection of the militant groups. Drug trafficking routes from Myanmar are intertwined with arms smuggling and insurgent financing, and this has today even exacerbated ethnic tensions, violence, and governance deficits in the region. And therefore, Northeast is just witnessing a dangerous fusion of narco-terror economics and insurgency. So what is the way forward? What do we need? We need a coherent counter-narco strategy. And to address this multi-dimensional threat, responses must be equally integrated. First, I would call upon the intelligence integration, real-time coordination between the NCB, DRI, IB, state police, and the maritime agencies. And secondly, the international cooperation with the UNODC and regional parties. Second is maritime and border security. AI-driven container risk profiling is now a necessity. Counter-drone technologies and electronic warfare capabilities. I just went to Gwalior and to Tekkenpur, where BSF has raised a dedicated drone squadron and school of drone warfare, and has signed a MOU with IIT Delhi and Rustomjee Institute of Technology, Tekkenpur, for counter-drone research. Of course, financial disruption, and I'm sure Harjit will be able to talk about it, targeting the Hawala networks and crypto channels, and an aggressive asset forfeiture laws like in NDPS and PMLA, etc. The fourth, which is a very serious issue, is a demand reduction. How do we bring about the de-addiction, the entire architecture in the country in which the whole society has to participate, as well as the community policing and behavioral interventions. The last point, of course, is targeting the source. And of course, we are talking about the diplomatic pressure. We are talking about regional engagement to curb production in Afghanistan and Myanmar, and development-led strategies in our vulnerable border regions. So let me conclude with a stark reminder that once again, narco-terrorism is not a peripheral threat. It is a hybrid warfare instrument. It weakens all our nations, not through invasion, but through corrosion of institutions, economies, and societies. And if left unchecked, drugs will continue to finance terror, fuel crime, fracture our communities, and compromise national security. And therefore, our response, and which is the subject of this theme of this entire conference, is counter strategy that must be relentless, coordinated, and uncompromising. Because I feel that in this battle of ours, which we have to fight, every kilogram seized is not just contraband removed. It is a terror funding denied, it's a life potentially saved, and a nation made more secure. I look forward to all your speeches. Thank you very much.
So I think first we have Dr. Arian Sharifi.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, let me thank the INDIC Research Forum for organizing this this great conference, and it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation. I think the topic given to me was the evolution, to talk on the evolution of the drug industry in the Afghanistan-Pakistan region over the past few decades. And so I thought I would do three things in the time allocated to me on this topic. First, I would like to specify really three main factors that historically have driven the drug production and drug industry in Afghanistan and Pakistan region, the three main factors that have really contributed that as sort of like underlying factors for the industry. Next, blending these three factors, I would like to specify three main periods in this evolution, if you will, of the drug industry in Afghanistan and Pakistan region. And then finally, try to draw a few lessons learned, given we've been dealing with this issue over the past at least close to 5 decades now in a large scale. That's what I would like to do in the next 10-15 minutes. Now, based on the research I've done over the years and the work I did in the government, this is basically what I'm concluding. The first main factor that has historically really drawn the drug industry in the Afghanistan-Pakistan region is governance, political order and governance, or lack thereof. There seems to be sort of an inverse relationship between governance and political order and the drug industry, where in areas and periods of time when you have stronger governance and better political order, then you get less of a drug production and vice versa. So an inverse relationship always seems to exist between governance and the drug industry. The second factor is the rural political economy, really. And it is that, the drug industry is not just a criminal enterprise in and of itself, but it is really directly linked to the political economy in rural areas. And at times, it becomes really the means of subsistence and survival for a lot of farmers. So it's really linked to the nitty-gritty of the rural political economy. And then the third factor is the existence of transnational networks and actors that link the drug industry to the broader region and to the broader world. And the key issue there is that history really has shown that it is very difficult for any drug industry to flourish in one country in and of itself. So unless there is functioning networks across the region that links this industry to the broader region and the broader world, global markets, it is very difficult for the industry to survive and flourish. Now, in this particular region, if you put these three factors together, we at least get 4 major periods of time that we can actually see the production fluctuate. Now, the first period is pre-1979, and I call that peripheral drug industry, pre-1979. Now, 1979 is important here because, as you may recall, in 1978, in Afghanistan, we had the communist revolution. In subsequent year, in 1979, we had the Soviet invasion, which basically changed everything, not only in Afghanistan, but even in the effects were felt in the broader region. Now, pre-1979, in the Afghanistan and Pakistan region, if you look at these 3 factors, look at the governance, there was weak governance, but there was functioning governance in both of those countries. Not really strong political order, but functioning. If you look at the rural political economy, it was really predominantly subsistence agriculture in the region. It's a poor political economy, very agrarian, but it was functional. It was working given the demands, given the expectations in the region. And if you look at the transnational networks, yes, informal networks did exist, but no sort of formalized web of transnational networks and routes really did exist in the region. And so as a result, the drug industry, while it did exist in both Afghanistan and Pakistan, it was really peripheral. It wasn't really a major issue pre-1979. Now, when we get to the next period, 1979 to 1996, that's a long period of time, and there's some variation in that period as well, according to in light of these 3 factors. But overall, you can put them into one period because in this period, really the war economy formed in that region, 79 to 1996. Now, if you look at these 3 factors, again, on governance in Afghanistan, we had 1979 to 1992, we had governance. We had the communist government ruling. Part of that was also supported by the Soviet presence, but it was increasingly fragmented government until 1992, when the government collapsed, and then the country really went into complete chaos and the factional fightings of the Mujahideen. So till 1992, we had fragmented government. 92 to 96, we essentially had almost no governance in the country. You look at the rural political economy during this period, that sort of subsistence agrarian political economy went away. There was massive internal displacements, massive external migration, conflict-ridden societies. People in the rural community really became embedded in conflict and in cross-border migration, cross-border trafficking, and all. So what existed as a peripheral economy in rural places in Afghanistan and also parts of Pakistan as well kind of went away, and it changed into a completely chaotic situation there. Drug production and trafficking became embedded, essentially really the core of the rural community for economic survival. On transnational networks, of course, lots of an entire web of formalized transnational networks began, in which people, guns and weapons and drugs were trafficked back and forth. And so this network really essentially enabled the localized drug economy in Afghanistan and parts of Pakistan to really become regional and even global. Drugs became a key component of the war, in which it fed the conflict by financing it, and the conflicts were also feeding it by creating ungoverned territories. across vast regions. So this intertwined relationship between drug and conflict really began in Afghanistan and Pakistan during this period. It is also important to point out that the majority of production even then was happening in Afghanistan, although Pakistan also produced drugs at the time. However, the role of Pakistan during this period was more as a facilitator. It was quasi-production, quasi-facilitator, both in terms of trafficking as well as production. Now, the third period to note is 1996 to 2021. And again, this is a long period with quite a lot of variation. But in light of the three factors that I mentioned in the beginning, you can put that into one period, minding the variations there. And this period is really a period of consolidation, suppression, and what I call hybrid governance in Afghanistan. And again, we need to sort of divide the period between the Taliban rule and then post-2001 developments. Now, governance during the Taliban rule, of course, if we can call it governance, I don't think we can really call it governance, but it was control, however, very severe control, at least in the areas that were under the Taliban control. I mean, it was basically the majority of the country. The rural subsistence economy was really poor again. Drug was produced for 5 of the 6 years of the Taliban rule. Only in the last year, in late 2000, they banned the drug, and it remained sort of banned until the collapse of the Taliban government in 2000 and 2001, in late 2001. Now, from 2001 to 2021, almost 20 years of the Republic, for the first few years, central government was very, very weak. Minister Stanekzai is here, and he's been involved in all of this from the very beginning. And as the central government starts to form and strengthen almost simultaneously, then we have the insurgency or the Taliban insurgency starting again. So on governance, I don't think the Afghan Republic, ever really consolidated power across the country. Even in the areas, in the regions it had under control, the control was quasi, the control was not strong. And so governance and political order was fragmented and weak throughout this period. Now, rural political economy really changed into poppy cultivation, especially in the south, parts of the east, as well as later on in the northern part of the country. So poppy cultivation became really the mean of subsistence for a lot of farmers, given the fact that alternative livelihood, despite a lot of development assistance that came, really alternative livelihoods did not really emerge, and the drug economy became really the main means of subsistence for a lot of farmers across the country. Transnational networks, of course, the networks that were formed during the jihad period existed, and they were expanded. And in this period, it's important to note that Pakistan almost completely shifted from production into facilitation in terms of trafficking, facilitation in terms of financing, facilitation in terms of the provision of chemicals and precursors for the development of heroin and related drugs in Afghanistan. So the position of Afghanistan and Pakistan in this period in the drug economy sort of became intertwined, and it became self-reinforcing, in which the Pakistanis were facilitating and the Afghans were producing the drugs at the time. So the key takeaway is drug economy during this period really became institutionalized in the country, when Afghanistan emerged really as the predominant producer of opium and related drugs across the world, and Pakistan was the main facilitator for this industry. And then the final period is basically 2022 onward until now. And as we can see, the Taliban now have full control across the country. Now they have really tight and strong control, although governance is struggling very seriously with domestic legitimacy and international recognition. Nevertheless, they are in full control, and they instituted a ban in 2022, and that ban seems to be very strongly effective, at least temporarily, until now. What will happen in the future is a subject of a big question in terms of the ban, but thus far, the opium ban, although over the past few years it's fluctuated, but it has, according to UNODC and other observing organizations, it's had an effectiveness of something between 95% to 80%, fluctuating over the past several years. However, if you look at the rural political economy, the rural political economy doesn't exist. I mean, the subsistence, the agricultural subsistence that was destroyed during the jihad, that was destroyed, then the drug economy became the main source of subsistence. And now with the ban and a lack of alternative livelihoods, really we don't have any tangible economic activity in rural Afghanistan. And so poverty, widespread and deep poverty, is really something that people struggle with. And the economy, the drug economy, is also transformed. The ban, yes, has reduced production and cultivation of opium, but trafficking seems to continue over the past few years, given large stockpiles of opium and heroin from the previous years. But also, it is transforming into the synthetic drugs. And since 2022, we can see a sustained upward graph of the production of mainly two synthetic drugs, methamphetamine and amphetamine, being produced across the country, especially in the east and parts of the south, and then smuggled through Pakistan. And again, Pakistan here has the role of facilitators in terms of providing the chemical precursors for the production of this drug, as well as providing the finance and the trafficking routes. So overall, the system is not gone. The system has transformed and being reconfigured as we speak. Now, very quickly, what lessons can we learn from this? At least 4 main lessons we could draw from this very brief overview of what happened in Afghanistan and Pakistan over the past 5 decades, if you will. Now, the first lesson is that drug economies are political systems. They're not just criminal enterprises. If you look at drug production only from a criminal lens, that is really the main mistake in drawing any strategy to counter that. It is really embedded in the political systems. Issues of governance, violence, armed groups, political economies, they're all intertwined. They're all providing the underlying factors for the emergence and sustaining of drug economies. So it is not just a criminal enterprise, but a broad political system. The second lesson we can highlight is that coercive bans can work, but only temporarily. They may be very effective in short periods of time, but unless the underlying political and economic incentives are addressed, they will rebound. They will reconfigure, they will shift. We can see all these 3 of them in Afghanistan since the ban. I mean, even as we speak, large swaths in the north, especially in Badakhshan province, are actually being cultivated with opium right now. So it's kind of shifted from the south to the north part of that. But also it's being reconfigured into the synthetic drug, which is very, very difficult to ban as it does not require any cultivation. It could be done in hidden places. The third lesson is that local households are rational actors. They're not ideological actors. They respond to the availability of the opportunities and the risks associated with that. So long as they can produce opium and cultivate opium, and that they have an incentive to do so because of a lack of alternative livelihoods, they will continue to do that. So any strategy that actually does not address the micro level farmer incentive for eradication is really bound to fail. And then finally, the fourth lesson is that the drug economy is adaptive and it's resilient to shocks. It is very difficult to really completely eradicate it. Geographic displacement does happen, as we talked about earlier. Temporal shifts happen. It falls and it rises again, unless really the underlying factors are addressed. And product substitutions happen. Opium and heroin are now being substituted to a large extent by methamphetamine and amphetamine and other synthetic drugs. So to conclude, my understanding is that you really cannot, when it comes to the cultivation and production of opium, you cannot really solve the problem at the farm level or at the very local level. There has to be any strategy, will have to be integrated, it will have to really address the underlying causes that in which the drug economy emerges, survives, and thrives. And those three factors that I mentioned are sort of key in envisioning any effective strategy. Thank you.
So can I thank Dr. Arian Sharif for a very, very, very well explained the reasons and the growth, how it describes the political economy of that system and what are the lessons drawn, the counter strategies. And now can I request the next speaker, that is Harjit Sandhu.
Thank you so much, sir, for this. So I will try to keep track of my time. Distinguished chair, esteemed panelists, and respected participants. Follow the money and you will find the architecture of power behind crime and terror. It is an honor to address this gathering on a subject that lies at the very core of the narco-terror ecosystem, that is, illicit financial flows from the Golden Crescent. I'm focusing only on the Golden Crescent part in this. The Golden Crescent, comprising Afghanistan, Iran, and Pakistan, has long been one of the world's most significant narcotics-producing regions. But what sustains this ecosystem is not merely cultivation or trafficking. It is the finance. The global scale of money laundering is estimated to be between 2 to 5% of global GDP, amounting to trillions of dollars annually. A significant portion of this is linked directly or indirectly to narcotics trafficking. I will say roughly around 500 billion plus USD every year is produced from the various narcotics. This raises a critical question. How does this money move once it has been generated where the drugs are? The answer lies in a three-stage system, that is placement, layering, and integration, supported by both formal and informal channels. And at the center of this system lies one of the most resilient mechanisms, that is Hawala. Long time back in 97, I had written one small piece on request of Laundering News from Australia, Asia Pacific Group, with the title, A Good Old Vehicle for Moving Bad Money. So it is well established. Hawala is an informal value transfer system, also named as alternative remittance system, or in some old publications, people used to write alternative remittance system banking. It is not banking. These Hawala networks operate on trust, speed, and anonymity. They move value across borders without physical transfer of money and often without leaving a trace. So this means both sides, the excess funds are generated. So the black money on both sides will be generated. And in India, we jokingly call Hawala as Hawa mein lena dena. So all the transactions are in the air. Of course, I have made scores of presentations since 97 on Hawala alternative remittance system for 1.5 hours exclusively on Hawala. But I will put a link to one of the publications that I wrote as part of Interpol with FinCEN Financial, the enforcement network of US Treasury, because people had no idea what Hawala is. An interesting anecdote is in 1998, I went from Interpol to make a presentation on Hawala, exclusively on Hawala alternative remittance system, where all the US Treasury people were there, Attorney General was there, so many FinCEN staff and from all over the world. And in the end of that presentation, I showed a lot of advertisements where on Hawala in the local vernacular newspapers in Canada and US, they were advertising openly. You can send money to Jalandhar or Peshawar or Lahore the same day, and you don't even have to pay money before that. You pay us the money once the payment has been confirmed in that part. Can any bank do it? Can any bank do it in the world? No, not possible. The rates were low. So quite a lot. But I finished that presentation with the warning that today it is our problem of Asian countries. But if you don't do anything to regulate this Hawala type systems, mark my words, in 5 or 10 years, you will be fighting the same. And then happens 9/11, and within 1 week, they were searching for me all over the world. Using my old address and telling me that which country you are currently based, we want you to come and address the US Senate Finance Subcommittee to know how that money for 9/11 was moved to Hawala. In fact, if you see our publication that time, Interpol 1, so we have given one very good example of how Hawala people came to know. There was a famous case, Churaria case in US, and when the accused started telling judge that I moved the money through Hawala, he said, what is that word, Hawala? So this he had to explain. The accused explained how Hawala works to the judge. So that prompted FinCEN to later on coordinate with us, and we wrote that report, which was sent all over the world to all the law enforcement agencies. Initially, it was only for law enforcement, but now it is publicly available. That is Hawala. While historically legitimate, their opacity makes them highly attractive for drug traffickers, terrorist financiers, and organized crime networks. The basic principle is two dishonest people have to be honest with each other. There is never any complaint because they have to be honest with each other. I wrote in one of the presentations, and there is another joke that used to go around that time. Wherever you have 3 persons from Indian subcontinent, Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, Sri Lankans, Nepali, from Indian subcontinent region, there will be Hawala in one form or the other. And it is not only in these countries. If you see alternative remittance system or informal value transfer system or Hawala type system, we came across during my Interpol days about China and Japan. This Chinese Yakuza with Buryo Kudan of Japan, they've had perfect equation on moving money on both the sides, even though the countries have no relation. Even here with the everywhere, wherever these Hawala operators are, you get. I searched during that time the names. Chinese know it as Hui Quan, Chiao Hui, Hui Quan, Nying Sing Kek, Hui Xian, and public in English they translate all of that into chop shop. South Asia, Middle East, Arabian countries, they use the same Hawala Hundi. Vietnam uses the name Hui. Thailand uses Phui Quan. Philippines says door-to-door services. Africa uses gift services. Latin America is Casa de Cambio or stash houses. And another interesting anecdote of that was during Vietnam War, one DEA agent was to pay installment for his housing loan, and he sent money through a local Hawala dealer in Vietnam. So he has recorded it. It is in that those documents I had access during that time. But after 30 years, now they have made it public. It should be publicly available, that example there. So about coming to the current topic, about illicit financial flows from the Golden Crescent, money laundering, Hawala networks, organized crime, etc. I will concentrate on these few studies. Chairman Mr. Yashovardhan Azad has mentioned about Mundra port. So that was first I am mentioning in 2021, where 3,000 kilograms of heroin was seized, one of the largest interceptions in recent Indian history. But more important than the quantity was the method. The shipment was disguised as legitimate imports. Front companies handled documentation. Financial flows were layered through complex transactions and suspected Hawala routes. This case exposed how global trade systems and financial laundering mechanisms converge. And without Hawala, how they move the funds, there is the fresh air import is another term which side the transactions are to move. There was a time when Bombay port was full of old rotten books and scrap, because that was imported, and against that the money was sent out when there were more restrictions. So they are on paper importing some stuff which comes, which is useless, but then over invoicing is done and then money is sent around. I don't want to go into more details of that. The second case I will touch upon is Punjab narcotics Hawala nexus. Punjab continues to witness cross-border drug smuggling linked to networks across the western border. Investigations reveal use of drones. Chairman mentioned this point. Use of drones and traditional routes. Local distribution is tied to organized crime groups, and payments are routed through Hawala operators. They don't need banking system. Same is even in Afghanistan. There was a time that in Iraq, I was looking into one case there a few years back. In the interior area, no bank could make the payment there. It was all sent post. Even some of the UN organizations were paying through Hawala because that was the only way possible to reach the money to those places. I don't go into those further details. So in several cases, these funds have been linked to terror financing, demonstrating a direct narco-terror connection. The third is Jammu and Kashmir narco-terror linkages. I know General Rajan Koshar will touch on more details later, but just to touch on that, the convergence in Jammu and Kashmir is even sharper. Narcotics smuggling has been used alongside arms trafficking. Funds are transferred through Hawala channels to sustain terror modules. Local drug trade generates recurring financing. Here, narcotics are not just contraband. They are a strategic funding mechanism. The fourth comes case study, NCR synthetic drug labs. Recent crackdowns in National Capital Region has uncovered clandestine methamphetamine labs. These operations involve chemical precursors sourced through legitimate supply chains, links to international syndicates, financial flows routed through shell companies, digital systems, and Hawala. This marks a significant shift. India is no longer just a transit corridor. It is becoming part of the production and financial ecosystem. Even for production of heroin in Pakistan, acetic anhydride used to be smuggled from our side of the border, from Rajasthan, Gujarat side. And that was even at that time when I was here in CBI. So we that time came to know of some cases. Fifth is dark web and crypto networks. Again, Chairman touched on that the part. Another emerging dimension that is of dark web, marketplace, cryptocurrencies for payments, conversion into cash via informal networks. This was touched upon in the keynote addresses also, this issue. So this creates a hybrid system, combining modern digital tools with traditional Hawala networks. So understanding the nexus, all these examples I mentioned, they reveal a larger pattern. That is, illicit financial flows today are multi-layered, technology-enabled, and transnational. They are driven by a convergence of drug cartels, terrorist organizations, organized crime groups, and financial intermediaries. This forms a criminal terror financial nexus. I have a presentation on that also. I can share in the link later. So these networks use Hawala systems, shell companies, trade-based money laundering, real estate and high-value assets, and digital currencies. The result is a system that blurs the boundary between legal and illegal economies. Why this matters? The consequences are profound. Illicit financial flows undermine national economies, they fuel corruption, they finance extremism, they distort legitimate markets, and they weaken governance. In many cases, they do not just exploit weak systems, they actively weaken them further. And the way forward for us, our response must be as sophisticated as the threat is. We must move from fragmented law enforcement to integrated financial disruption. This still requires stronger anti-money laundering and counter-terror financing frameworks, real-time intelligence sharing. As they say in our chairman's old expertise, intelligence, unlike French wine, does not get better with age. So it must be active intelligence shared, monitoring of informal financial systems, that is Hawala type systems. They are very fragile. They are very complicated, but at the same time very fragile. One visit could dismantle the entire network. Use of AI, big data, blockchain, and targeting financial enablers, not just traffickers. Because networks do not survive on drugs alone, they survive on money flows. As a core principle, criminal networks survive on secrecy, but they collapse under transparency. And in conclusion, distinguished participants, if we are really serious about countering narco-terrorism, we must shift our focus from seizures to systems, from arrest to networks, from drugs to money, because when we cut the flow of money, then we weaken the entire structure. No money, no movement, no network. The real battlefield is not only on the borders, it is within the financial systems that sustain these networks. Thank you very much for listening to me. So with this, I thank once again the chair and other panelists, and looking forward to listening to the others. Thank you.
Thank you, Harjit, very much on your presentation on the illicit financial flows. I think it is very, very illuminating. And as you rightly concluded, we need an integrated financial disruption for this kind of an impact which we're facing almost all over the world now. Now, can I request the next speaker, understanding the narcotics-terror nexus, and our speaker is Masoom Stanekzai, former Chief of National Directorate of Security, Afghanistan.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much. And I'm sorry that I came a little bit late to this session. Listening to everybody, and this is one of the very complicated topic where there is a multidimensional, and when you dive deeply into each aspect of that, you see that it is so much deep, it is so much wide, and billions of dollars are involved. And I think countering that, it is a huge task, and it is not can be addressed by just a very simple kind of approach. It will require a very comprehensive approach. It will need a collective kind of a cooperation, even at the regional and beyond the regional level. So when each one has spoken very well about, for instance, the background of the narcotic in Afghanistan. Sharifi said very well, outlined that the Hawala system, the whole kind of the vicious cycle that from cultivation to collection to processing to precursor trafficking in the global market. I think each one of them has, we can talk about each one of them for hours about all of them. But to summarize it, money, drug generate money, and many support terrorism. And terrorism, drug, and money, they collectively creating a corrupted system. And that corrupted system is undermining the governance. And as we say that, this kind of a vicious circle is always going. Whenever there is insecurity, when there is insurgency, terrorism, you will say that the cultivation will flourish. Apart from the poverty, apart from the fact that in Afghanistan there was drought, Afghanistan has been suffering for over the past nearly 5 decades. Continuous regime changes. Every regime change has created a weakness in the governance, in the rule of law, and also effectively controlling the country. So I think that was the situation in Afghanistan, and this is how this the narco mafia has gradually developed into a very sophisticated network throughout the region. When you talk about the Golden Crescent, which is mostly Afghanistan, Iran, and Pakistan, but it is not limited to that. There are several other kind of black triangles where there is a concentration of so many of the networks producing, processing, importing precursor, and also managing the routes. For instance, one of these black kind of a triangle is the Baramcha, Iran, and Dalbandin of Pakistan, which is located in a route which they have access very easily into through Pakistan. It can transit toward the Arab and Gulf, and even to Africa. When you look from the same route, transition to Iran, and I think the transit route, that is the Balkan route, which is going through Turkey and also to the Balkan countries. And then the same way you can move to the area like Nemruz. There is another triangle which is called the Robot Triangle. The Robot Triangle is also connecting Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iran, and that is also another route for smuggling and bringing the precursor. And this is not a very small amount of the drug that is processed. That is the involvement of both state and non-state actors. From the past and the present, those actors were involved in, because the drug is generating a huge amount of money. They have control. For instance, they were financing the Taliban at that time. During the Republic time, actually by the very rough estimate, the Taliban was generating between $200 to $250 million for supporting their operation, and that was the drug money that was coming. It was not only the drug, but it is because they were supporting through their affiliate with the state and non-state actors in the neighboring countries, and they were bringing the precursor, and they were controlling those kind of assets because that was generating money for them, and that was also one of the biggest reason, I think, when everybody is talking about the effective border control, cooperation, but the aspect of the corruption is usually undermined because the official is usually not talking about the level of corruption that does exist, even in the airports, whether it is in the police, whether it is in the border police, or even sometime in the army, because they are the easiest way that how they can trafficking the huge amount of the drug from one place to another place, which is making the network more kind of safe and secure, and they easily through the official routes they deliver those things. For example, there is also not limited to that. When we looked at how insurgency is moving or how insecurity is moving, and the drug is moving to that side, as Sharifi said mentioned, there was in 2023. the ban on cultivation was announced, but it was not effectively implemented in all areas in the same way. It is gradually moved into the northern area. It is also kind of gradually moved beyond Afghanistan into the area of Chatral. It is moving to the area of Tajikistan, and also from the Helmand side, for instance, the biggest cultivation today, it is moving to Gulistan and Dalbandin and those areas of the tribal area on the Balochistan side. The processing unit is also moving on that side. So, I mean, whenever there is an increasing level of insecurity, there is ungoverned space. That ungoverned space is providing a kind of ample opportunity for the processing unit. And those processors, they generate a lot of money, and then they force the farmer, and they give them the loans even before the cultivation is taking place. And those poor farmers, because by receiving those loans, they have to cultivate, and they already bought that product from them. So I think the biggest benefit that was kind of the Taliban has benefited actually during the 2003 and even today, because in 2022 in Afghanistan, around 232,000 square hectares of cultivation was in Afghanistan. That is, for instance, in 2025, it is reduced to 10,200, which is a significant reduction. But at the same time, the stockpile that was produced in 2022, it was 13,200 ton, where in 2025, the amount which was produced, it is 900 something kilos or tons of poppy. But the interesting thing is the price of the poppy, a kg of poppy during 2022, it was $75 per kg. But now that cost is increasing to $750 per kg. And that stock is enough until the 2027. And that business will continue. And you will see that by the end of maybe mid-2027, you will see more insecurity, you will see more a kind of poppy cultivation will increase in several other provinces. For instance, it will move to Hor, to Badghis, and maybe more areas in Balochistan, and also there were the tribal areas, which is more now under the control of the TTP or BLA. So this is also a very clear indication of how the narco mafia is working with the tourism hand in hand. They produce the drug, the tourism need the money, and they have to cooperate. And at the same time, we cannot undermine the role that the international market is playing, because the huge and big businesses, as a friend mentioned about the Hawala system, and I think that is playing a significant role because there are people with very nice faces, with providing charity to some people, but behind the scene, actually they are the kings, and they are running the business. And I think we have seen so many of situations where they generated the money, and they are how to make the black money into the legal money. I think that the easiest way is they invest on infrastructure, they invest on the production side, they are investing in charity, they are doing all these good things. And people think that this is the best person, but in fact, they are killing so many people in the world, and also in Afghanistan. For instance, one of the very negative impact of the poppy cultivation, you know that when the harvest season is arriving, many of the poor people, both men and women and young and children, they are hired for the harvest. And, when they are doing the harvest, it is contaminated their hands. When they are eating food, actually after a while they are addicted. So, this is why the level of addiction in Afghanistan increased significantly. And I think that is one of the biggest problems, not only in Afghanistan, maybe in any other countries which this flow is going. At one point, I was working in Iran. I think I have seen in my eye that how many Iranians are addicted. You cannot see on the surface, but there is a lot of addiction there. And even at the very kind of people that you won't think that they will be addicted, but there are people who are using the poppy, and they are smoking that in homes. And although in recent years they have been able to crack down that, it was many years ago that when I went there, and I have seen that by my own eyes, and saw the people that how that network is expanding and distributing those poppies in those areas. From my experience, because I can talk for a lengthy period, but I want to conclude a number of suggestions from my own experience. The first experience that we had, that there was a lot of efforts to ban the cultivation or to eradicate. I think eradication is not very useful and was not effective, because in areas where there is some security, or the farmer will immediately suffer, but eventually in the remote areas where access is difficult, where there is insecurity, I think eradication will not generate that result. And that will be because that will suffer the ordinary farmer, the thousands of the farmer that is cultivating, they will be suffering. It is important that to focus on the processing unit. The processing unit, because there is a both collection point, because all the poppy is collected in the area where the processing is taking place, and the processing lab. And if you want to really, before it go to the route into the transit, maybe that is the best way that I think at one point in 2017 and 18, we had some very successful operation on the processing unit, which generated a lot of positive result. But because of insecurity in Afghanistan, that was not consolidated as a kind of to generate something that really you can claim that it was successful. Secondly, technology. When people are using the technology for tracking, for tracing, for drone and all these things, but we should not forget that drug trafficker, they are also more sophisticated and maybe one step ahead of the police and the law enforcement, because we have seen some example in some areas where the drone was used for carrying out from one side to other side to cross the border and move in a very kind of sophisticated but simple way, that how they use those simple technology, but use them how to cross the border without facing with any border police. And they were using a tactic from the very old time. They were putting in a push kind of a situation where they put the poppy and they fired, for instance, 5 kilometers, 2 kilometers inside the other country's area, and they will collect it from there where it is a desert or somewhere and you don't have any police or anyone else. I mean, those sophistication is there. The third is, I think, manipulation of the very poor people, and that is basically they are forced, whether they will be killed or they have to carry that. They are blackmailed. I think that is usually done in the kind of legal kind of routes that they are using this, and so many people unfortunately, some in Afghanistan was died because they were eating the capsule and then they are going and traveling by ear, and then that those things also happen. But the most dangerous is when the security people of, for instance, at one point, the Taliban, the security people from Iran and Pakistan, they were cooperating and having the pickups, and they were loaded with those drugs, and they were moving through some of the point from where they can distribute. So this is the biggest problem. It cannot be addressed just by kind of this normal kind of a law enforcement activity. You have to tackle both the issue of governance, the issue of cooperation, not using the terrorism and drug as a national security kind of instrument, because that is the biggest kind of a problem when you use the drug money for supporting the terrorist groups, and that terrorist groups is again protecting the narco business. So I think this is the vicious circle that has to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You raised some very, very important issues, very practical issues, which of course we'll discuss towards the end. And can I request now our next speaker, who will speak on closer home, Kashmir, Punjab, militancy, and our speaker is Major General Rajan Kocha. Sound.
Okay, very good afternoon, sir, and a pleasure to be a part of this panel. And deliberations have been very, very authentic, down to earth, practical, and implementable, because this problem is not new, and we have been grappling with this problem for so many years. And especially for the people who are posted on the borders, who resort to border management and relate to the security of the country. So the topic for me is Golden Crescent and India's internal security, with specific reference to Kashmir, Punjab militancy, border management, human security, and I have included two more important aspects which were not mentioned in this agenda. I have included Northeast spillover also, because I feel that that is also very, very relevant to the topic. And finally, I have some recommendations to give, because without it, at the cost of repetition, I would not like to repeat what all has been discussed right since morning, when General Hasnain also alluded, and the Lieutenant Governor, Mr. Taranjit Singh Sandhu, also alluded to certain aspects which are concerning our internal security. When we talk about the Golden Crescent, we also should talk about the Golden Triangle, because that completes the entire process as far as our country is concerned. And I must say that we have some guests from Afghanistan, but I was just reading something, and it was a good information to me that since Taliban has come into power, there has been a drastic reduction in the cultivation in Afghanistan. So that is one thing which I have read. I don't know if it is true or it is authentic, but that's what the open sources tell me, that Afghanistan has made an effort to check this cultivation within their own country. And there are reasons to that. As far as the Indian context is concerned, I think first of all I would like to compliment the enforcement agencies, because there has been a continuous catch of and the seizures which are taking place, almost 8,000 kgs of heroin every year. And I think that's a good sign. It shows that urgency on the part of a government to tackle this problem. A reference to context India now, the western land route, the Pakistan, and especially feeds narcotics into Punjab, Jammu and Kashmir and Rajasthan. The modus operandi has changed over the years, because BSF continuously monitors this area. The Narcotic Control Bureau is also part of the process. And there is a very active involvement of the Pakistan ISI, and as well as the Lashkar-e-Toiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, who are instrumental in pushing this drugs into India, and a great deal of terror financing is also taking place. Mr. Azad also had mentioned about the maritime route, because that is one area. He made a mention of Mundra port, because we had almost 2,900 kg of heroin being seized from these areas. And this is, I think, a bigger challenge for us, because to manage the coastline, we don't have that kind of a system available, because the border is almost 7,500 kilometers. It is difficult for the Coast Guard. The state police boats are also there. The Coast Guard is also there, and the Indian Navy is also there. But mostly they are working in silos. So that is the cause of concern, that we need to have an integrated. I'll be actually coming to border management. I will be covering that in that particular area. Synthetic drugs was being talked about. And yes, this is a major concern. Methamphetamine and fentanyl and these kind of synthetic drugs, the quantum has increased sharply in the country. Coming to Kashmir now, because I've had 3 tenures in the valley, and I can tell you that the drug menace or the narco-terrorism is very, very significant to the funding of the militants. Almost 15 to 20%, and this is data which I got from the NCB in the open sources. This data actually suggests to us that almost 15 to 25% of the militant funding is taking place through drugs. And especially we have seen new methods like drones. You see, earlier it used to be in single digits. Today, in a year, there are more than 400 to 500 incidents of drones which are being used. And normally, these drones have a payload of 2 to 10 kgs. And heroin weapons also, light weapons are also coming in, as well as communication equipment. So I think this is an area of concern. The second area is the youth of Jammu and Kashmir is getting affected. The age bracket of this youth which are being targeted for drugs is 18 to 30 years. And this relates straight away to the socio-economic drivers also, Because see, everything is related to employment, everything is related to poverty, everything is related to your standard of living in a particular area, and when you don't find such opportunities coming to you on a regular basis, then drugs become a very, very lucrative kind of a business to get it. Government has done a lot, and I'm sure that this effort will go on in a slightly more purposeful and a concentrated manner, because border towns are extremely important to us. That's why I was speaking about Kashmir, and now I will be speaking about Punjab also. I remember the movie I saw, most of us actually have seen it, Urta Punjab. So now I feel that we can enlarge it to Urta Bharat also. Because the reason is we have a new epicenter of drugs, and that is Rajasthan. Because earlier this used to be Punjab during the militancy days of Punjab, and this K2 was being talked about, Khalistan and Kashmir. And if you remember, at one point of time when DGP Gill was instrumental in sorting out this Khalistanis also in Punjab. You see, my concern is, when I was speaking to the Army Commander of Western Command recently, the youth who are coming on recruitment rallies have been found to be physically unfit. Most of them are not able to clear their physical test. And remember that Punjabis and Sikhs are a martial race, and we have Sikh regiments, Sikh-Lai regiments, Punjab regiments. We are not getting the numbers now, and as a result of which we have to recruit in people other than Punjabis, other than Sikhs into the regiment to fill up the numbers. So this is a concern I want to flag here in this very important our deliberations, that these drugs have started impacting the armed forces also, in a way that we are not getting the numbers into the armed forces, because the youth of Punjab, 553 kilometers of border is there with Pakistan. So, and some figures are there, almost 1,000 kg of heroin is being seized on an annual basis. And I'm just talking about the seizure because there'll be much more which would have actually got into the system. So that is the, from a security point of view, from a military point of view, I wanted to raise the issue in this forum. Now I come to the spillover which is taking place in the northeast part of the country, and this is concerning us because we are having an issue in Manipur, and this Manipur issue is this narco-terrorism and this drug trafficking has contributed a lot on this Manipur issue. Harjit, Sandhu and myself have figured in a discussion on Manipur a couple of years back when this problem started in Manipur, and it's still continuing. We have not seen an end to the problem, and we are aware that 1643 kilometers of border is with Myanmar as far as the northeast is concerned, and we don't have a proper border management force there. BSF is not there.
Yes.
So we have Assam Rifles there, and Assam Rifles has a dual role, because Assam Rifles also has to look after the border. And when I was interacting with the DG Assam Rifles, he was very, very frank that, sir, we don't have a firstly boundary wall or a border fencing or any kind of a smart fencing, it is told that it's only 10%, but on ground, if you go, you will find large gaps. And it is seeing the terrain there, it's not possible to carry out patrolling of the entire areas, and especially when you have a free movement regime kind of a thing, which was there, which to some extent I think the government has been able to modify it, but it is still there. Now, BSF data tells me that persistent infiltration attempt is taking place, and especially on our western borders, 3,300 kilometers of the border, and Myanmar again, 1,600 plus. So the drone threats have increased dramatically. So now is the question that what is the kind of a system we would like to have for the border management in terms of counter drones. I would like to suggest something like the direct energy weapons, which are coming now into play. DRDO has made a prototype functional, but its efficacy is only for the smaller drones, 10 kilowatt. We are also looking at the Iron Beam from Israel, maybe around 100 kilowatts plus. So in times to come, I think maybe we'll be able to apply the high energy weapons, the direct energy weapons here as a counter drone system in these areas. Now, coming to the point of human security and quantifying the social impact, because that is also one of the segments of the topic which has been given to me. And what we are seeing is there's a high percentage of opioid users in the state. HIV and AIDS is almost 10 to 15% as compared to the national average of 1% in Punjab. So this is a cause of concern, and the kind of rehab shelters or places or centers we have rehab, that is not sufficient to take on all the drug affected people in the state. So I think that will be one area which also would need to be flagged out, that rehab centers, a kind of a de-addiction module, I think will need to be worked out in a slighter, better manner by the governments who are, and especially Punjab, I would like to refer to that here. Use of technology. See, we have talked about technology. Use of technology also becomes extremely important, using artificial intelligence, predictive analysis, carrying out these kind of measures and incorporating them into our intelligence system, I think is going to play a greater role in times to come. And finally, I have my recommendations to this forum, and especially to Yashas, because I have been one of the founding members of this Indic research organization. As the day it was conceived, and we started building up this organization from scratch, and I'm extremely glad to see that IRF has grown by leaps and bounds. A dynamic Yashash and his team have done a wonderful job. So my recommendation is that we need to have a national border security command, a kind of a unified command. And we have tried this unified command, the concept in Jammu and Kashmir, and it was a great success. And we had those BSF with us, and J&K police also part of it. So there has to be a kind of a command center operating, and it should not be different for the Northeast and the West, it should be one for the entire country, having a 360 degrees approach. Most important in drug prevention is the OODA cycle, decision cycle, that how fast can you react. Most of our problem in our enforcement is that golden hour is lost. That golden hour is lost when you would have actually struck and you would have been able to catch a particular consignment. Then only later on you start doing your damage control measures. And also, I think the systems have to be actually made in which the intelligence also works, the enforcement agencies also work together, and a kind of a people-to-people contact. Because human intelligence, I think, is much more crucial in these kind of seizures than the electronic intelligence. So the cultivation of informers, the cultivation of your system, that should be given a greater focus. And also important is the fusion of the NIA with the NCB, because normally I'm not, I haven't seen the system myself. They're experts on that to tell us, but I would like to know that what kind of coordination the NIA has with the NCB, right up to the state level and right up to the grassroots level. Because you may have something in Delhi, a kind of a coordination, but do you have a similar kind of coordination at the district level or at the state level?
Yes.
That is one area I think we can have a look at that. Next is somebody very rightly mentioned here that if we actually cut off the financial flows, and Harjit also mentioned this, and if we actually cut out the financial flows, we will dry out this entire terrorism, narco-terrorism. So I think looking at these Hawala rackets, what we're talking about, and we are talking about Benami transactions and the kind of systems like the Jamaat-e-Islami, the way it was working in Jammu and Kashmir, the way its funding was curtailed, the way the stone pelting stopped in Jammu and Kashmir. So I think this would be one area of you focus for us, because very important to strike the source. And my last point is more on to the reduction of demand. You're more on to the education of the youth in the country, because after all, it's a question of demand and supply. You know, everything we talked about, logistics and everything, but ultimately it is the demand and supply. Yeah. And in case this demand, and I think a previous speaker also from Afghanistan, he mentioned on this particular aspect also, in case we are able to reduce the demand of these drugs in our own country, and especially the youth are sensitized on the ill effects and the ill usage of this kind of a system, I think 50% of your battle can be won. Because the people of the country, in case if they don't want a thing, they will not encourage using that, all types of drugs, which are coming into the market. So, in conclusion, I would highlight a proactive strategy, a data-driven mitigation, integration of the border security, financial disruptions, public health issues, socio-economic development, and my last point is the legal part. The legal system of ours needs a drastic change. They need to be fast-tracked courts with exemplary punishment. Because what is happening is all of a sudden the witness will vanish, the cases will get dragged for a number of years. Justice delayed is justice denied. I believe in that. So I think a multi-pronged strategy is required. It is not restricted to only the Hawala or the drug lord or the mafia, which to some extent also gets integrated with some people in the enforcement and in the government agencies. High stakes are involved, a lot of money is involved, corruption is there. So all these factors have to be addressed. It is not that we addressed only one aspect. We need to address it. It has to be an all-round approach, a 360 degrees approach, and a whole of nation approach. And in case we are able to do that, I think it will be meaningful in such seminars. If we can bring out these aspects, I think we'll be going a long way. Thank you very much, Jen.
Thank you, Mr. General Co-Chair. We are running a little behind time. And thank you for stressing on the maritime route. You've talked about very important things like the border villages. You've talked about integrated strategy and a counter-drone strategy, the Iron Dome. So let us have the last speaker today. This is on drug trafficking routes via Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran. And our speaker is Shah Mahmood Mian Khel. He's the former governor of Nangarhar and former acting defense minister of Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. Floor is for you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depends where you are. I have listened to three speakers. I was joined lately, but most of these topics are, overcrossing, and which was discussed. Afghanistan is traditionally, produced 80 to 90% of the opiates, and the route was going to south, which is through Pakistan, to Chaman, Torkham, and then to Gwadar in Karachi, and from there to the rest of the world was moving there. And the second route was through Iran to Balkan countries and also to Europe. And the third route was through the north, which is going to Central Asia and also East Europe and others. But 50% of these drugs were going through Pakistan, only 10-50% to the north route. As General Rajan just mentioned, it is a supply demand, which where is the demand, so that route, go more drugs to that routes there. But since Taliban took over from 2021 to 25, according to the UNODC report, the supply or the production of the opiate is reduced drastically. It is 80-90%. But unfortunately, other type of synthetic drugs increase because it is not only the poppy cultivation, but now is what's called meth, they call it ice or tablet K and others, which is increased, which is again as mentioned, like supply and demand issues here. Introduction. If you go to the statistic, it is only like 10%, it work. 90% doesn't work because of the corruption, because of the security institution, because of the link to the tourism, counter-tourism issues, criminal networks. All these are involving and they benefited from that. So it was not like one easy solution. You need like a holistic approach on all sides, both on the introduction and also the supply side and also the demand side. Because if you just go to the forum, get prices, as Minister Stanekzai before mentioned it, it was before these reduction, it was a $75 somethings. But if you change to heroin, 1 kilogram of heroin in London market is around $30,000. So it is the huge, supply and demands issue here is existing. And the same time as the other issues we are concerning in our region, unfortunately, is for political side. Some countries use extremist groups and terrorist groups or criminal networks for their own political objectives. These are the sources they supply and fund these groups, and they also have an impact, in our security and also on the drug production, trafficking, and others. If this formula is not changed, that is also another issue we will struggle in our region, in Afghanistan and others countries will be is a serious issue because in the same time, the security institution, as I mentioned, they all benefit from that. And so that was, we need again, as a policy issues, we have to have a collective, response. It is not only one country issue. It is not a one region issue. It is global issue. But of course, in our regions and also in our countries, we do our best. In Afghanistan, as I mentioned, in the supply side, is that there is a huge reductions for the last 3-4 years. But other drugs like tablet K, ice, and meth, and others increase, and this has a huge impact on the youths in our regions and our countries. I don't want to repeat, give the statistics and others, but we all know drug, security, economic, and governance issues. It has an impact on prevention and also interdictions and also reduction of the drug trafficking in our regions, in our countries. As we are talking about the drug issues, but before just talk on this, if you look to the, as on the economic side, as a management side, before Mr. Harjit mentioned, this is very sophisticated business model. Billions of dollars are moving between different borders, different countries, different languages, ethnicities, and others. And return, this how the money distributed, who benefit what, and also the chemical, how coming to like precursor and others they are smuggling. But this is not only drug has an impact on all these things. All illicit economy, as a former governor of Nangarhar, drug is a very less factor now, but there are other illicit economy has an impact on tourism and insecurity and instability in our regions. For example, in case of Afghanistan, is the mines. I used to work for a research institution, USIP, Institute of Peace. We were just had a research on that. One is a illegal looting, but then is a legal looting. There is a legal looting is going on in our regions. People have a contract for 1,000 ton of mines, but they just, smuggling millions of tons on that license. And so this governance issue is also more important because the more corruption, the more it will bring more insecurity. And all these factors are important on the security and tourism in our regions. And the last things I would like to, since I'm running out, I'm the last speaker and people will be tired, I don't want to repeat all the data and others, but last things I would like to mention, because since we are talking about the drug reduction or control or has an impact on tourism and security, unfortunately, recently Pakistan bombed the treatment center in Kabul. The drug, addicts who were treated there, and 400 people were killed and more than 900 were injured. This is against the international law and against the, human laws, and also I call it a genocide. Just to just bomb civilian people there. should be condemned, on the strongest term, because we cannot forget those, because, the treatment of addict people, these are, sick. You just want to bomb the sick people and just to have a political objective. This is one example I just give you. That was the reason, is during my time I work in the government, or I work for the United Nations, or work for the USIP as a research institute. And also I was a Deputy Minister of Interior. Unfortunate, most of our neighbors, in some cases, they use these kind of, drug trafficking, illicit economy for their political objective. And that has a huge impact on our security in the region, and also on governance, and also in our future. So I don't want to talk a little bit, more, because I had a lot of data, with me. I thought I'd talk about that. But when I saw the last speakers, so most of those data were provided, and I really like the presentation of Mr. Stanekzai and Mr. Harjit, especially the Hawala issue, because that is important things in all the economy of drug or illicit economies going on. That, or even illicit sometimes is legitimate. Many people who send money to their families, as a legitimate money, they use the Hawala. So Hawala is not completely, who use Hawala is for the, criminal activities and others. Yes, they use it more sophisticatedly, but normal people also use that. That is important topics, and I learned a lot from his speech, and also the General Rajan just talk about, one thing about the security commands and others. If you create more layers of control, this also increase the opportunity for more corruption, more things. So that was unified approach on the central level, a focus on security governance and developments to reduce, supply, and also introductions, and also rules of law. And people, more education, especially to the youth generation. It is more important to not use the drug. And why they use the drug, there are so many other reasons, on social side and others. So a lot of work is needed, and it is not like one-time issue, one conference issue. It is, you have a long-term policy from education institutions, from the communities, from the religious, institution, others, to just have educate their own children not to use drug and others. That is more important thing. So thank you very much. I don't want to take you one more time, but thank you for inviting me.
So thanks a lot. All the speakers have finished now, and I believe we have 15 minutes of questions. So can we allow the questions first? And then you want me to give a roundup, or I can give a roundup now, whatever. Convener or Bala?
So I think
Your choice, sir. You are the chair. I think you take.
Okay. Well,
You decide.
Let me just, give a very brief.
Use your authority.
No, I'm extremely honored and privileged to have chaired this session, because the kind of things which have come out as arguments and suggestions are so extremely relevant. First of all, there's an agreement over the issue that we can't deal with silos, and dealing a thing like narco-terrorism really needs an integrated strategy. And starting off when Dr. Sharifi came up with some excellent arguments of corruption and governance, and again Shah Mahmood Saab Michael also raised these very critical issues, how it directly impacts and how the drug economy virtually moves the political economy, and is so resilient that it adjusts itself very well. So today our biggest problem all over is, you might have lesser poppy, heroin or whatever, but these synthetic drugs coming up are completely destroying the lives of the youth. And I'm very happy Major General Rajan Kochar raised this issue very strongly, and the need to have these counter strategies, not only for narco-terrorism, but also in terms of de-addiction, in terms of reducing demand, which is a very critical thing. You know, I remember I was posted in a place called Mandsaur, SP Mandsaur, which is the largest opium producing district in the country, and where the government used to issue licenses to the people. And same thing what Shah Mahmood Saab talked about, that you are given a quota to grow some opium, but you grow more, and then it goes on to that network. In 5.5 months, we were lucky, and we made a haul of about 8 quintals of opium. And we used to get simple information through our, people. If they trust you, they give you information. And that is where I learned all these, issues of the policies, if they are coercive, the incentive which you give to the farmers earlier to produce more, the illicit money network, the way it used to flow, the working of the Hawala. So this is absolutely right that we need to integrate each part, and I think we should follow it up. Of course, I'm sure the Indic Forum will do it with a paper as to how we can integrate this entire thing. Another very important thing is the focus on maritime and the vulnerability of the maritime, which General Kochar also supported me in that. And, we need a real, what you call integration, technology backup, artificial intelligence, the whole gamut on this western side, especially when we have seen what is happening in Mundra. Shah Mahmood Saab again raised a very critical thing. If your policy is to promote non-state actors and use them for extremism across the border, then we have a very serious problem. And then, of course, as you talked about countries' facilitation, it leads to a bigger dimension. And of course, the most important thing, Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General of the United Nations, had said how corruption corrodes democracy, corrodes the nation's system. And today, the corruption, very rightly pointed out by a few speakers, in the law enforcement agencies is indeed a very serious problem. And to tackle it, I think we need a solid political will. I think we need citizen support. And I need, leaders, army leaders to sort of come up and show their strength in this particular area. So I'm extremely honored, extremely happy that we have been able to have a session like this, and all those people who participated must have benefited immensely. And let's now throw it open to questions. What is the system? I won't know. I'm not technically very strong in this area. So Rajas, how are you dealing with the questions?
Yes, so they will be posted in the chat box. Actually, so there is a question. I can read it out. It's open
Please
to
read it out.
speakers.
You handle,
Yeah,
And
so since the lack of coordination among agencies has been discussed, does the Department of Homeland Security, like the USA, shall be there here in India that works in coordination with every agency? That's the question, sir. It's open to all the speakers.
So who would like to address this? If nobody, then I'll take it. If somebody wants to, please go ahead.
Can I say
I think you're
something?
the best person to take it up, sir.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Can I say something?
Yeah.
The problem is the Homeland Security in the US. We cannot replicate one model to another country. Every country has a different, issues. They have to come with their own solutions. The question is not lack of institution or lack of laws. Usually it is a lack of enforcement and lack of coordination within the security institution, the political institutions, economic institutions. All these things you need coordination like that. Just cut and paste models, I believe, not good for any countries. Every country should, look to their own historic backgrounds and geography and politics and others. I think that's important. Even the Homeland Security is not functioning very well here, in the United States. So
Yes.
I endorse that.
Major General Kocher wanted to say something.
No, I think he told you to take it.
Right.
I
So,
think that was
let me sort of totally endorse what Shah Mahmood Saab had said just now. We have our institutions. We have our laws. It's just a question of executing them. On the Western coast, for example, in each of these cases, the coordination has to be done by the agencies. The seizure, which is done by the particular agencies, is the one they can. For example, whenever we are making any seizure or assets, we ask all the technical areas and the experts of the different areas to get into that and give their inputs. Though this can be done, what happens, I'll tell you, in real practices, and this is what happens is that, every organization wants a name for itself, that, we were the first.
who is
And
the
then
first.
spend a little more time trying to explore that. And when it gets out of their ambit, they can't understand, then they call. And so then that golden hour is lost, because there are quite a few
Yeah.
things you do immediately at that point. So what we need is a kind of a, but the political leaders to tell you, all of you will get credit. The point is, let us integrate and get together for a bigger cause. There's no other way you can handle these things. Yes, another question.
May I say
Yeah.
very quickly, sir, one thing
Yes,
on this,
yes, Harjit,
continuing on that.
please.
Many times I participate in these and people talk of the law should have more teeth and this. So
Yeah.
once to this question, I said, no, it's not a question of having more teeth. It's the question of having willingness to chew and a more rational dental arrangement. Whatever mechanism we have, whatever legislation we have, it is the will of the people who are there. If everybody does his or her job, and the current legislation, wherever it is there, if people have the intention to do, then there is no more further legislation or no more creation of homeland security. The existing mechanism, if they can coordinate and they don't fight for who gets the credit, that is what which you said. So if that one we are not trying to get who gets the credit, then it can be very easily solved. Thank you, sir.
I agree. So is there any other question, Rajas?
Yes, sir. There are two questions, I believe. So one, we'll read out the first question. What are the biggest structural and operational bottlenecks you see today in real-time coordination between central agencies and state police forces? And what single reform would you recommend to overcome them? This is addressed to Yashovardhan Azad, sir.
Oh, me. All right. Okay, central agencies are like the Intelligence Bureau. They are like the CBI. They are like the central, armed police forces. They are there. Plus, we have, of course, the defense agencies also. We already have for fighting terrorists, we have a multi-agency center in which all the inputs are coming together, and they are we have a state multi-agency center in which these things are being taken up. There is no problem on that count. Then the central police forces are virtually, 2/3 of the time they are spending in the states. At the request of the states, the center is providing them, and they are functioning to assist the civil authorities in that, but whether it's law and order, whether it's disaster, whether there is anything. So there is already a kind of a coordination mechanism set in. The only point which I'll add here is, yes, leaders make a difference. Proactive leaders, leaders whose outreach is better, who are able to command better and have better contacts, they, of course, deliver more in a much, much better fashion. So from that point of view, we have the coordination. It's just a question of individual, lapses here and there. Otherwise, it's running fine. Yes, next.
Yes, sir, we have one last question. Is it possible to create Hawala channel by the government agencies to track criminals by allowing them to use this channel to make transactions and ultimately arrest drug traffickers? And it's connected routes beforehand. It's open to everyone.
No, Harjit Sandhu is the expert.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay, I'll take it, sir. No, firstly, Hawala per se is not illegal.
Yes.
Mr. Shah Mahmood also said the same, and I said that because
Normal people.
there is a document called Abu Dhabi Declaration. I can search in somewhere. Its cover page was designed by me. This was under UN ODC and Global Program Against Money Laundering in 1999. We had created this. So basically, under that was that each Hawala operator, Hawala, to keep record of all the transactions. There was a basic form they just fill in so that there is a record that can be checked in. But of course, when they do some few things legitimate, then there will be many, they will not fill the forms. So it depends on if it is your lawfully earned money, they will very religiously put it all the record, they will put it in their diary. But if you say, no, I don't want anything to be mentioned, can you send this money to Jalandhar by tomorrow? Yes, done. So system is there, but we can't do that. Per se, Hawala is not illegal. So there is no question of us doing it and catching the Hawala dealers. They are money exchangers, basically. So they exchange money and they also move from one to another. It is in most of the countries. It is not illegal. I hope I have addressed this question.
Yes.
Yeah, and basically you should understand the difference is when the terror money is passing through Hawala channels,
Yes.
then we investigate and catch them. But
Yeah.
Hawala per se is not
Yes.
something which is
Yeah.
okay.
So I think
So-
Shah Mahmood sir want to add something. Sir?
Who? Dr. Sharifi?
No, sir. Shah Mahmood.
Dr. Shah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Please.
Sir, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
The Hawala it is a like money exchange issue, but the question is the fee,
Yeah.
For example, if the legal system, the bank and others reduce the fee, people will use that as a more secure than the Hawala.
Exactly.
But if the fee of Hawala is $1 per transaction and the bank charge $10 per transaction, because on the legitimate Hawala, most of the poor people they use it.
Yeah.
And then for the what's called the cost of Hawala, how much it will cost. And so if they have a reduce, then people will use the bank system, there.
Yeah.
For example, like in the US, when you use credit card, no charges, and everybody use the credit card.
Yeah.
Even for $1, they, not extra charges, or for $2 or $5, use some other cash. So that was most people use the credit card there. So it is that is the issue. Just going back to the issue of Mr. Azad just mentioned is coordination and also implementation of the law. That is more important. I was appointed as the governor of Nangarhar, which is one of the unstable province. We didn't do that much, but only we bring coordination among the security institution, with intelligence institution, also with the central government. And that changed the dynamic, and Nangarhar become unstable province, become a stable province, and the ICSK was defeated during my time there. So many laws existing and institutions are existing, resources are existing. But the question is will and coordination. That is more important. How to prioritize your activities and others. I'm sure Mr. Sharifi, Dr. Sharifi might be talked about all these issues of governance and security and developments before, but unfortunately I didn't listen to him. So thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yes, sir, we have one last question. Speakers mentioned the use of humans as carriers of drugs. Is there a growing synergy between drugs and human trafficking criminal groups, or the drug syndicate have also adopted human trafficking in their methods of operations? So this is addressed to all the speakers.
addressed to?
All the speakers.
I mean, Dr. Sharifi, would you like to answer this?
Sure, let me briefly address that. In my experience and research, the routes and actors that serve the drug industry also serve human trafficking and other forms of transnational organized crime. So the routes are pretty much the same. Most of the actors, if they're not the same, they're interlinked. They are collaborating with each other. And then the financial means, the Hawala and other means that were mentioned, kind of serve, holistically both the drug industry and other forms of transnational organized crime. So briefly, they're very much linked together. And then in some cases, when people are moved, they also move drug with them. So especially across borders, if you look into the Afghanistan and the northern borders, so people on drugs are moved together. In fact, part of the fee that is paid by the person who's being trafficked or smuggled across the border is the fact that he or she is actually carrying some drugs. So that synergy also exists there. Thank you.
I think that answers it pretty well. Any other questions?
No, sir, I think we can end this.
Okay, so no more questions. I would like to thank the speakers profusely for the ideas and the arguments they brought to the table. I thank the Indic Forum, of course, for organizing this. And this session has certainly been very, very illuminating. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody. We have eaten into some time of the next session, but we apologize to the next session. My friend John, who is, I think, chair of that session. So, and of course, okay. Thank you so much, and Vipul.